Cities that had gone quiet were suddenly alive with fear. The lights went out, and the sky burned as fire streaked across it. For years, the threat had felt far away, a warning whispered on the edges of news. But now, the sound of sirens made it undeniable. Families rushed to shelters. Streets emptied in seconds. The war people feared had come home. This was not a border clash, not a distant proxy fight. It was direct, brutal, and real. A night when the future of an entire region shifted, and nothing would feel safe again. The first wave. The first wave began with a sound no one could ignore. At 10:40 p.m., sirens cut through the night across Israel's largest cities. People woke in confusion, many still half asleep, before realizing what the warning meant. In Tel Aviv, Haifa, Ashdod, and beyond, the same scene unfolded. Families rushing for shelters, children carried down stairwells, doors slammed shut as alarms echoed again and again. Above them, the sky came alive. Bright streaks arced upward from Israel's defenses, while darker shadows raced downward from the horizon. Explosions soon followed, some sharp and distant, others close enough to rattle windows and set off car alarms. The night became a mix of fear and noise. The ordinary rhythm of city life shattered in an instant. Missiles and drones did not arrive all at once. They came in carefully timed waves, each following the other, designed to leave no room to breathe. The first siren had barely faded when the second one started. Families huddled together underground, listening to the thuds above, unsure if the next sound meant another interception or a direct hit. For many citizens, this was unlike anything they had ever endured. Past attacks had often targeted border towns, smaller strikes that came and went, but this was different. The assault reached deep into Israel's heartland, striking major cities that had long believed they were shielded. The pattern of fire in the sky made one truth undeniable. This was not a warning or a show of strength. It was a coordinated attempt to bring war into the core of daily life. Breaking through the shield. Israel's defenses answered the assault within seconds. The familiar arc of Iron Dome interceptors lit the horizon, followed by the deeper trails of David's sling and the high-altitude bursts of Arrow 3. On radar screens, operators watched as wave after wave of threats appeared, hundreds of moving points racing toward the heart of the country. The strength of the defense lay not only in the machines, but in the speed of human decisions. Each operator had only moments to choose which target to strike and which to let pass. The strategy was clear: protect the cities first, then the bases, then whatever else could be saved. But the sheer number of missiles broke that balance. No system, no matter how advanced, could chase every warhead at once. Some interceptors soared into the sky and exploded their targets before they could reach the ground. Shards of burning metal rained harmlessly over open fields, yet others slipped through the cracks. Their impacts shook neighborhoods and left smoke rising over streets that had never known war so close. It was the first time in years that Israel's shield showed its limits. Designed to withstand salvos from militants and militias, it was now tested by the full weight of a state's arsenal. The message was clear. The defense was strong, but not unbreakable. For those hiding underground, the realization was just as sharp. The sky above no longer promised safety. Flames in the heartland. When the first missiles broke through, the impact was immediate. In Haifa, one of the country's busiest port cities, a direct hit tore into a fuel storage site. The explosion lit the waterfront in orange flames, and thick black smoke drifted over the city.
Emergency crews reached the site of the attack to assess and contain the situation.
Fire crews struggled against walls of heat as the blaze spread across the industrial area. South of there, Ramat David Air Base was struck. Hangars and supply depots were damaged, and parts of the runway cracked under the force of the blasts. It was a rare moment when one of Israel's strongest military sites took fire on its soil. In Tel Aviv, the danger felt even closer. 2 missiles reached civilian neighborhoods, striking apartment blocks. Windows shattered, walls crumbled, and families were trapped beneath rubble. Rescue teams dug through the night, guided by shouts from survivors. Each strike carried a message. No place was untouchable. The attack was not scattered or random. It was designed to break confidence, to show that even in the heart of the nation, safety could no longer be taken for granted. Weapons of a new era. What made this night different was not just the number of missiles, it was the kind of weapons Iran had chosen. These were not crude projectiles fired blindly across a border. They were modern designs, built to outsmart defenses. Missiles like the Zulfiqar and Fateh 110 could shift their course in the final seconds of flight, making interception harder. They moved fast, and they moved with purpose. Before the missiles came, the drones. Small, silent machines packed with explosives. They were sent ahead to strike radars and defense batteries. Some Iron Dome units went dark after being hit, leaving gaps in the protective net. Only then did the larger waves of missiles begin their climb into the sky. It was a carefully layered plan, tested many times in smaller battles, now unleashed in full. For years, Israel's defenses had been a wall. On this night, Iran showed it had found cracks and the tools to widen them. Limits of defense. As the assault dragged on, the strain on Israel's defense became visible. Operators watched screens filled with flashing markers, each one a missile or drone racing toward its target. Decisions had to be made in seconds. Which threat was the greatest? Which could be ignored, even if it meant damage to the ground? Iron Dome batteries, normally precise and reliable, were overwhelmed by the sheer volume. Every interceptor launched cost valuable time and resources, and still, more targets kept coming. David's Sling and Arrow 3 were forced to engage beyond their usual roles, stretching the system thin. For the first time, the defense network was not in control of the battle. It was chasing it. Each interception was followed by another incoming wave. The realization grew that even the most advanced shield cannot cover everything, and as fragments of destroyed missiles rained down, the sound of those that slipped through reminded people that protection always comes with limits. The human cost. By dawn, the true weight of the attack was visible. Streets were scattered with glass, smoke lingered in the air, and families carried what little they could from damaged homes. Hospitals filled quickly. Emergency rooms in Tel Aviv and Haifa overflowed with the injured, men, women, and children pulled from collapsed buildings. Doctors worked without pause, moving from one patient to the next. 11 people lost their lives that night. More than 150 others were hurt, many in critical condition. Behind each number was a family, suddenly broken. Parents searched for children, friends waited outside hospitals, praying for news. Daily life came to a stop. Schools closed. Buses stopped running. And parts of cities went dark after power stations were hit. Fires burned through the night, casting a glow over neighborhoods already shaken. The missiles had not only struck steel and stone, they had reached into the heart of daily life, turning ordinary routines into scenes of grief and survival. A pause before fire. When the last wave faded, many expected Israel to answer immediately. Fighter jets were already in the air, ready to strike, yet no counterattack came. Instead, silence stretched across the night. Leaders met in hurried rooms, weighing the risk of plunging the region into something larger. Prime Minister Netanyahu declared it a direct act of war. But even with those words, the decision was to hold. Washington was called first. Talks began with the United States on how to respond together, rather than rushing alone. It was a pause that frustrated many at home. Opposition voices accused the government of weakness. They argued that earlier raids in Syria and near Iran had invited this strike, and now the people were paying the price. Outside, small groups gathered in protest, demanding answers. Inside, the army stayed alert, keeping defenses ready in case another wave appeared. For one night, Israel's answer to the attack was not fire, but waiting. The region awakens. While Israel held its fire, others began to move. In Lebanon, Hezbollah raised its alert and hinted that if Israel struck back, it would not stay silent. Across Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, militias loyal to Iran gathered their fighters, waiting for orders. The message was clear. If this fight spread, it would not remain between the two countries. Far away, Washington reacted quickly. American warships in the Mediterranean shifted to high readiness, prepared to intercept anything that might threaten Israel again. Officials promised more defense support, warning Iran that escalation would not go unanswered. Meanwhile, other voices tried to calm the storm. Turkey and Qatar called for urgent talks. Russia and China demanded an emergency meeting at the United Nations. But words did little to quiet the tension. The night had already changed the balance. With one strike, Iran showed it was willing to act openly. And as the region stirred, the question became not if the conflict would grow, but how fast. The attack was more than missiles and drones. It was a message that the old rules no longer held. Iran had stepped from the shadows, striking openly, and Israel stood at a crossroads. One path led to restraint, the other to a wider war that could draw in the whole region. For families hiding in shelters, for soldiers waiting on airstrips, the future felt uncertain. The night had proved that even the strongest defenses can bend. What happens next depends not only on weapons, but on choices made in the silence that follows fire.